Good evening, everybody. You're very welcome to Clark's Bar, where tonight we're episode 11 of the Westmeath Iarmhi TV Club podcast. Tonight, I'm joined by new member to the panel, Eamonn Gallagher, manager of Father Dolphins. First time on the podcast, so we welcome Eamonn. And on my right hand side, the Roy Keane of podcasts of the Westmeath of the Iarmhi TV podcast, as Tommy Gallagher described him as, Pat O'Brien. You're very welcome, lads. Pat, I'm going to start with you first, because since we did the last Hurling podcast, the news broke that you have been part of the minor hurling management for 2026. Jeremy and the manager, come on, you fill us in on the setup there.
Well, that's true. As it turns out, it was kind of a surprise to me in one sense. It was a last-minute phone call from Jeremy, and I suppose Ger and his management team had been with these group of lads from 13 up as far as under 16, and there's 4 of them in it, and as it turned out, they're all parents. And I suppose possibly he felt it mightn't sit that well going for an interview with the county board to get the bigger job, which obviously at the end of the underage is minor. So he rang me, and he also rang, as you know, Seamus Ennis, and we'd agreed to let our names go forward, and not knowing whether he'd get the job or not get the job or whatever, because we reckoned that he'd be up against it anyway, because Brendan McKeough and Allo and a few of the other lads from last year's management team were also interested in the job, and they had done a very good job last year. You know, they had won all their games up along until they met Dublin in the latter stages of it, and just came up short there, but he got the job anyway. So my name is there, but for anyone that's looking at it, and the way it's written down, it's Jeremy, and then my name second. I'm certainly not a number 2 in this party whatsoever. I'm in here, I suppose. It's a long time since I'm trying to recall, I think it's back in 2012 or 2013 was the last time I was a minor management. And we actually won an All-Ireland B final, which would be equivalent, say, to the Joe McDonough and senior at the moment. And actually out of that team, still on the present Westmeath team, we have the likes of the Jogger, Joey Boyle, Niall, Aaron Craig, Tommy Gallagher, Angus, and there was great club players also, the likes of Anthony Price and Cathal Scally, and you know, Shane Fagan and Pollard and Higgins, from David Higgins, you know, Tommy Gallagher in Australia. So look, there was a grand bunch of lads all up along, and they did, you know, break through up to senior, and they had some great days playing senior, you know, and they might be at the twilight years, they're all up in around 30 and 31 now, but that's where it is. They seem to have a nice bunch of players at the 15, 16 age group for the last, say, this year and last year. Whether there's anyone else out there outside that net that hasn't been caught up in, say, development squads for those 2 panels, we'll be hoping to find them. When the championships are over, the under 16 and the minor, we'll be holding trials and whatever. And hopefully, we can get a run at it. It's obviously going to be tricky again with dual players. There is that problem down in Westmeath always. You have, last year there was, I think, 4, maybe 5. There could be something similar, I don't know. The less the better for both management, obviously, but it is a tricky one, because the games in the championship, they do come around, I think, in the month of April or that, but they're on a Thursday and a Saturday. So it's huge demands on a young lad who has other commitments at that time of the year. He's getting closer to his end of school. Now, I think none of them might be doing their leaving cert. That's the only good thing about it at that age group. But 17. Possibly, yeah, with under 17. I think that was the reason, and bringing it from 18 back to 17. But it's still huge demands on young lads, especially, you know, if they're going to be playing 2 codes within the space of 2 or 3 days. And there's a huge difference in what your demands are in football and what your demands are in hurling. Even the speed of the game, or the difference of the movement of the ball and everything. So it's to adjust and all that. So we'll see as we go along what way it works. So
yeah, but look at this. It's I suppose, for management, it's 2 new voices coming in. You're both very experienced coaches. Seamus involved with them in their senior B team this year. You've been involved. You've been well known for being involved with underage and Cascon down the years, and then latterly involved with the senior end of it. So I think it's a shrewd appointment by Jeremy, and to bring the 2E in, you know, to go along with the people that are already there. So we wish you the best of luck in 2026. Anyway, I know you know, when you get involved with stuff, Pat, despite what you do say, when you get involved with stuff, you go 100% into it. So, you know, wish Ger and yourself, Seamus, who else involved?
There's Martin Geary from Southern Gales, and there's Greg Gavin from Mullingar, and there's Fintan Clark from Castletown, and there's three, I think there's, and Ger himself, it'd be four. I think that's the four.
And the two new faces coming in.
I think so, yeah.
We'll wish you the best of luck. Eamonn, I'm going to come over to you now. You probably created history this year with Father Dalton's, in that, you know, we've been talking on these podcasts for the last couple of years, you know, that a team can come up out of Senior B and, you know, go back down again. And we asked the question, you know, numerous times, would we ever get somebody that's going to come up out of Senior B and retain their senior status for the following year? I think you were the first group to do that in certainly quite a long time.
Yeah, it's progress for Father Dalton's. They're in a catchment area with a lot of football, but they give good commitment, and that's all you can ask of all these individuals. Probably a small pool of players. It restricts what you can do with training, as opposed to the stronger clubs in the county. Like, we would be working off a base of 21, 22 players, and then we lost a couple of players to Australia. So training sessions wouldn't be as meaningful as they should be, but they work hard, and I wouldn't be one for killing a dual player. Like, we train one night, very minor training session the week of football, and then we train twice the following week. Because my theory is a tired hurler or a tired footballer is no good to anybody. So my mission would be to have those good training sessions and players getting his rest as well.
Yeah, look, you have to do that. Like Pat has already said, but at an underage level and at adult level, it's even more so. And you would have been out there, like, and you have the likes of Milltown still going on in the championship. You know, the players come, you know, Ballymore right down to the deck yesterday. You know, in important games they retained their status. You had Maryland still with lads from there still in with a chance of making a playoff in football as well. So, like, I think it's one. And I wanted to ask you this question: is it one of your best achievements, looking after teams down through the years?
Yeah, I've trained teams over the years, and they probably were to be one of the favourites to win the championship. But for Dalton's to stay up this year, I was with them 2 years ago. It was their first time ever to play senior hurling, and then they got relegated. And it's not easy to get relegated, come back and win the Senior B then the following year. To win the Senior B, and our main aim this year was to stay a senior. And from that end of it, you'd be delighted with it. The Ballymore players are delighted and probably will respond even better next year. They know there's a big step up from Senior B to, say, the top 3 or 4 elite clubs in the county, and there's a huge bridge to be broken there. So they're getting there. They're capable of playing some great hurling, but they probably don't play great hurling for long enough periods in the games. But those periods are getting longer. So I think if they can get the few boys back from Australia, I think they'll have a cut at it.
And plenty of underage work going on in Father Dalton's as well. So, like, would you be having, say, 19-year-olds to come into that panel next year, or what way? And I know this year as well you had a lot of injuries as well. You lost Brian McCabe for a long part of the year.
Yeah, we struggled in that department. They have 2 or 3 young lads coming on next year, which will add numbers to the training sessions. Like Pat and know, 27, 28, 30 players, it's ideal to have a good, honest training session, rather than playing backs and forwards. And you get that you need the game to get the passion going. Like, I'd be a firm believer in passion. I think if you don't have passion, you don't have anything else. It's all very, very well to have nice hurlers, but nice hurlers without that passion that I talk about, they won't win anything. They'll be there or thereabouts, but they won't get over the line.
And we've spoken here, in particular Pat, and we've talked about this, about how you manage to stay in the Senior A. And Pat has always said you target the team that finished second last in the group when you come up out of Senior B. Did you look at it that way, or did you look at every game was a chance to win it? Because you were competitive in a lot of games. You did get the win against the team that finished fifth last year, but you also finished the championship with a draw against the team that finished fourth in the group.
Yeah, well, any team, when they're coming up from Senior B, they're going to look at who they think they can topple. And this year it was Castlepollard, and Castlepollard were looking upon us as their. So it was a huge game from two of the so-called weaker teams in the division, but it was a massive game for them two clubs. And lucky enough, after a poor first half, we tore into it in the second half, and we got the result that we rightly so.
Yeah.
And then
I've seen a few times Dalton's, but I studied them up close against Castletown, and first thing that strikes me is they're a big, strong team. They have a lot of physicality, but they're very skillful, and they play a nice type of hurling together, and they back up one another. And definitely this year, like, the table doesn't lie. They have 3 points, and their nearest team under them had 0. So they were well secure, and also they'll benefit hugely from this year. They will be looking next year to not alone just to stabilise it, but try and see if it's the same format. How far away are they going to be from getting in the top 3? That's their target, But they have, like we mentioned it there, Jack Carney's a sweet hurler. Yeah, none of the top teams there, The McCabe's are gifted hurlers, If they get right on the day, you won't handle Owen McCabe on his day. Now, he goes in and out a bit, all right, but he's a strong man. He knows how to score goals, and he's done it not just this year, but he's done it 2 years ago when they're up at senior. He created severe hardship for a lot of teams with scoring goals. His brother Browne is coming on there along. They have, in the big game they needed this year, whatever was said inside at half time, it worked because young O'Rourke and McLaughlin were a huge plus in the second half. But I said it all along, he got a fantastic tune out of John Gilligan this year. Now, John is in his twilight years, but by God did he stand up for the club, and he showed passion, as Eamonn's talking about, because he led from the front. And even in the last game against Lunkelly, he scored 1-2. And he's renowned as a footballer, but when he puts on the Ballymore Father Dalton's jersey, he's playing for the parish.
He certainly does. He is passionate. But that's their strength, is their work. They're not afraid of work, and they'll work their socks off. Okay, they get tripped up every now and then, but they're getting experience. Experience is a huge thing at that level. If they can stay senior next year again and push on another step, they'll get there, because there's 5 or 6 under 21s in that team. Their age profile is very, very young, and you see a lot of the heavyweights. Their age profile is moving on, and there's a kind of a new. In a couple of years' time, there'll be a new era coming on in club hurling. Who's at the top is anybody's best, but there will be faces gone that are holding clubs together for the last number of years.
Yeah, next year then even you say about staying up, and it's like you'll be looking at maybe targeting. Like, the first target obviously is to remain senior, so you're looking at whoever wins Senior B this year and whoever comes up, that they'll be no different. They'll probably be no different, and they would have played you at some stage. Whoever wins that Senior B, they'll be looking to get your scalp. So, and it's not guaranteed in it that you're going to stay in Senior A, but it would be a great achievement and great for development if they can stay in.
It would, and it'd be great for the club mentors. There's a hard core of men keeping Father Dalton's going, and they're unbelievable, the work they do down there.
Yeah. Yeah, we won't mention it, we should leave someone out, and we'll leave it at that. But we're nicely teed up now to go in and look back on the last round of hurling games in the championship. We're going to start with the intermediate first of all. Scores from the last day: St. Bridget's 5-16, Ahearne 1-13, Southern Gales 3-26, Clonkill 11 points, and Turin 1-18, Castletowngagan 1-9. Now that meant at the end of everything that was done, Turin topped the table with 5 from 5. Castletowngagan finished second, 3 wins from 5. St. Bridget's and Southern Gales both finished with 4 points, 2 wins on the 5 games. Ahearne then they missed out on the scoring difference, and Clonkill then bottomed the table with 2 points. Paddock, I'm not sure, did you see any of the games? Some of them were on TV. The Turin Castletowngagan game, did you get into?
Yeah, I was at that one, all right. But the first thing I'll say, for the competition, it's good that the 3 sole teams are in the semi-final. You know, that's the first important thing. There was always going to be one of the so-called second string lads, but it was looking like it could have been more than one in a lot of stages, even down to the last round. But credit to, first of all, to Bridget's and Southern Gales, like they overturned what looked tough games enough, you know, to get in there. So Turin have set the pace, and they continue to set it. Now Castletown probably were at their weakest, poorest performance on that particular day. It was only a matter issue who went top and who went second, you know. So at the end of the day, it wasn't really a game changer, because if you're going to win, you're going to have to play them all, no matter who comes along. But Turin, you know, they're still only in a semi-final, and they have done all the hurling, you know. They have showed everybody, you know, that they mean business this year. The younger lads that have come through are playing well together. They seem to be well gelled together. We mentioned already that Seamus McKeough is in as a helper to the manager that's there, and he seems to have gelled them together. And if they keep their heads, keep their feet on the ground, I've no doubt that they'll be the hardest team to beat in the competition.
Southern Gales, very comprehensive win over Clonkill as well, and that was part of the double header. I didn't get to see it. I was out in Shandon. Did you get to see any of that?
I saw a little bit of it, not at all, but they actually, Southern Gales were very, very good. They were huge value for their win. You know, we said all along, like Clonkill, I suppose they were depleted after all the problems they had during the year with the seniors and losing players, whatever, and our good friend Paddy Dowdall was extraordinary the week before, but I suppose Southern Gales read into it and looked into it, and it kind of nullified them to the best of their ability. And, you know, 326 is a huge score, especially the intermediate hurling, you know. So they're back in the mix. They firmly believe that they have a chance. They'll go in as underdogs against, obviously, Turin, because it's 1 and 4.
Yeah.
So, but they'll hold no fear. You know, in the early round, they played, so it was 2-15 to 1-14. You know, there wasn't that much in it. You know, there was a goal for Turin at some stage, I think we recall late in the game, that kind of just gave them that cushion.
Yeah, and they got a goal actually.
Yeah.
John Lee scored a goal from a free in the first half of that game.
So,
and, you know, only 4 in the end, and I'm sure Southern Gales will look back if ands and buts.
Yeah, well, I'd say Southern Gales are quite happy to play Turin in a semi-final rather than a final. You know, the semi-finals have to be won. You know, you can't talk about winning anything unless you get to the final. So the semi-finals are crucial. So the Gales will give it a fair crack at that. The other one, I'll let you tell, is it, Ralph?
No, I'm going to ask him.
Oh, that's fair enough.
He was standing behind the dugout beside.
Oh, well, that's no better man, so.
We'll go to him. I suppose we ended up going to right down to the wire in the end of the 5 games, and we needed a win against Ahearne. And we probably produced our best performance of the year.
Oh, definitely. St. Bridget's don't do it any other way. They always want to leave everybody hanging, and then they'll pull out all the stops. They were excellent that day. And like Ahearne, it was a strong team on paper that was out, but they won in the canter in the end. But it's back. They were committed, and when Bridges are committed, they're a test for anyone at that grade.
Yeah, it was a strange game in some ways. that we got goals
Yeah.
at the real right
Yeah.
time, you know.
Yeah.
Seamus Faulkner was playing full forward, you know, and Seamus won't mind me saying that he's probably in the twilight years at this stage, but balls were hanging around the square. I think one hand, he just,
Yeah.
you know, bet it to the back of the net instead of trying anything fancy or anything like that. We got 3 in the first half playing with the wind. We went in 9 points up, and Ahearne got a couple of points back then early in the second half. Then we got a goal, and a couple of points in quick succession, and it really, you know, put the game to bed as such. So it was nice to be able to give lads a run towards the end of the game as well. But you know, look, we're getting to a stage. I'm not saying we've turned the corner. I'm not saying we're world beaters, but look, I suppose it is a positive out there, and you know, this for definite. You know, there's 2 of the football teams gone out of the championship. So
any team that's going to beat Bridges this year will earn their spurs.
Yeah.
I firmly believe we'll have a say in the championship at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think they're sitting very well. I mean, early days, things weren't going well, and I suppose it took time. We did highlight it, like, you know, you have Terrell's Pass, Bridge, Milltown Pass. Their sole concentration is football championship. You know, it was always going to be a daunting task to gather them up and get them tuned into hurling. And, you know, you had a few hard games early on and the things weren't going well, but it just took one game to get you back on track, get you focused. And, like, if you're starting to hurl now, this is the right time to be starting to hurl. You know, so I would fancy, I think Bridges are in with a great chance. They're in with it, and the game, the semi-final has fallen nicely for them. You know, if I said to you at the start of the year that, look at, you'll get to a semi-final and you'll be playing Castletown's second team, you would have taken it. You'd be quite happy.
I still think though, Pat, we are the 4 favourites for this now, you know.
I don't know what betting bookie you met, but I can't find them anyway.
No.
If you had them odds, I'd be definitely on you.
Would you be on?
Absolutely.
Right.
But don't worry about it. It's the game. Don't worry about the bookie. You just have to go out and perform, and if you bring the same performance you had the last day, as Eamonn said, you'll be a handful for anybody.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Repeat now against Castletown. That was probably one of our better, purest hurling games in Castletown that evening, on a Friday evening in the heat. It's obviously going to be 100 miles different from what it's going to be now on the 4th of October. You know, we could have anything, but the 2 fixtures for the semi-finals for people watching on, Castletown Gallagher and St. Bridget's on Saturday the 4th of October in Kinnegad at 4 o'clock. And the other semi-final is between Turin and Southern Gales, also on that Saturday at the same time, but in Robinstown. So 2 cracking matches in store there for sure. So look, we'll see in 2 weeks' time. 2 teams we know are guaranteed are going to stop hurling for the year. 2 teams are going to go on for another 2 weeks into a county final. So we'll see how things go on.
You have a huge addition to just before you go. This Mickey Mullins. Wherever you found him, he definitely is a star for you at the moment, because he's holding the show together. His free taking is immaculate. He's chipping in with scores, and you know, if he continues in the form that he is at the moment, you know, like, you're not a bit afraid to get your forwards to attack and knowing that a free is a score.
Yeah.
And that's vital at this level now.
And at that level, Eamonn knows it, your lads give away frees, referees award frees.
Yeah.
You know, lads intend to chop, it's immediately a free. And if you have a free taker who can go, you know, 90%.
If he's a 9 out of 10, or as I say, you have him. You're going well. You're going well.
Yeah, but Turin have, you know, Castletown have them too. Turin have them in Sean Leach, he's been excellent on free as well. Southern Gales have them with the doubt. So, you know, everyone has their strengths and everyone has their weaknesses in the 4 teams that are left. But look, it looks good for a good end to that championship. Again, the Slevins coach has sponsored the Intermediate Hurling Championship. And you want to move on to the Senior B and the scores from the last day. Brownstown 23 points, Cullion 117, Ringtown 126, Crookedwood 216, and the game that wasn't on TV, St. Oliver Plunkett 18 points, Delvin 112. I mean, I know you wouldn't have been in Cusick Park because you were out of town that day, but Pat, a little bit of a surprise maybe with Oliver Plunkett and Delvin. Is that fair? Or look at the 2 strong teams. Delvin were coming in undefeated. Oliver Plunkett had lost 1 game.
Yeah, well, look, it's hard to know, but there was very little in it. Oliver Plunkett's dominated the game. They had, I suppose, a foothold on it. Delvin got it back to a point, but they just couldn't get level. If they had got level during the second half, I felt that they possibly would have pushed on. They let a few get away from them. A few scores, there was a nod free. It just didn't happen. You know, I'd say Seamus won't be over disappointed when he reflects on it and looks at it again. Plunketts are a big, strong, physical team, and Aaron Craig stood up that day. He really came to the fore, you know. At the last, say, 10 minutes, he caught a lot of ball. He caught a lot of the ball in the half-back line that was pumped down from Delvin. You know, he showed good leadership, I thought. The Plunketts, you see, they have that little bit of experience. It was only 2 years ago they were senior. Only last year they came down, you know, they were senior. You know, so they have that little bit of experience when it comes to these crunch games. Like, but Delvin, look at it, they have done good hurling all the year. Alan Cox has gone back. Whether he comes home for the semi-final or not, I don't know. Or maybe they might wait and see how they get through it. I don't know. But he probably is a little factor that he's not there. But like I said before, if the weather changes a little bit against Delvin, you know, the likes of Dean and Josh and these lads are lovely hurlers, a little bit on the light side. That's the only thing. You know, where Mullingar had that physicality and it was kind of a damp, breezy day. Like. But take nothing away from Plunketts, they hurled well.
Mention for Matthew Cunningham.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely.
He was very, very good. And he was on the Westmeath senior panel, I think, the whole year. I didn't know who he was at the time. And I actually picked him out looking at him. And he got a couple of really sweet scores. He was always shown for the ball, very lively.
And
you know, he played well.
As well.
Yeah, no, he was good.
Yeah, no, I didn't know who he was.
But also, Davy Gavin in the square is a powerhouse. He's a big, strong man, takes a lot of minding. Now, I was seeing he went off last Sunday with Mullingar, so I don't know how serious that would be, but he's a man that they need, you know, in that area.
He's a great target man.
Oh, yeah.
And he can hurl, he can go high, you can go low to him. He's power and strength as well, and he caused Delvin all kinds of trouble, especially in the opening 20 minutes or so.
Yeah.
I think Delvin, we were just saying, Delvin replaced two of their backs.
That's right, they did, yeah.
Both of them were on yellow cards as well, so maybe good management as well to do that.
But like we were saying all along the whole year that Plunkett's had a lot of injuries, and even down, like Bracken is a good goalie, and he's missing, but Greg Gavin comes in his twilight years, we'll be kind to him and even saying that. But he made one great save in the second half. Fabulous save, down low at the post. And that was crucial.
As well.
Yeah, no. His puck-outs were good. Yeah. You know, no. So, look, it's all to play for. Delvin will be quite happy, I'd say, just when they reflect on it. You know, it's another game, get on with it.
Yeah, and they're going to go now and meet Ringtown in the semi-final. Ringtown 126, Crookerwood 26. Was that part of the doubleheader you had, or what?
No, well, I've seen them playing earlier rounds. It's a very hard championship to call. Like any one of the six will fancy their chances of having a go at it. I've seen Brownstown and who was it down in Kinnegad?
Brownstown Cullion. No.
Brownstown Cullion. Cullion, I thought were a huge team, but probably lacked the finer touches. Brownstown were lighter, but they were nippier and they were more accurate. I feel Senior B is whoever limits the mistakes. Mistakes are the things that cost the Senior B teams, and they tend to get punished with the good forward line or whatever.
Yeah, Brownstown 23 points, Cullion 117, and ultimately that means Cullion are relegated out of Senior B. They go, pointless for the year. But just looking at their average, their score difference for the 5 games was a minus 22. So you've lost a game, 5 games by an average of 4 points. Like, it's very, very little.
There's very little to tip scales.
We did highlight that this was the best competition of the 3. Like, the 6 teams in it, they fought tooth and nail against each other to get results. And some of the results went left and right. Like, we take the Wood, for example. I mean, the Wood, at the start of the competition, we didn't think they'd make it, but they made life so difficult for everybody. and they fought above themselves. They possibly, their weakest performance probably was their last one, again, Ringtown, where they just came up short. But, they can be happy, like Brian or Barry was a player manager this year, if he reflects on it and goes back, he'd be happy with what he got out of them. They've done quite well. Ringtown, they've done enough to get to a semi-final. I think they're going to have to really perform in the semi-final if they're going to overturn Delvin. I know the first day, the day they played actually before Castletown and Father Dahl, Emma might have seen the first half of it. It was a fierce strong wind that day. Now Delvin got off to a good start against the wind. They actually had 2 or 3 scores got before Ringtown got out of the blocks. Now it ended up 422 to 411. It was a huge score, and but if you take the wind factor out of it, if it's a level playing field with no heavy wind, it's anybody's game there.
Father Dalton's played Ringtown in the semi-final last year in the Senior B, and Father Daltons were very lucky to get out of it with a win. Eamonn McCabe scored a couple of mighty points that day, but they were very impressive that day, and they seem to be carrying it forward to this year as well. So I think there will be a tough nut to crack now in the semi-final.
Yeah, Ringtown were after going through, they had a traumatic week down
Well, you see,
in the lead up to as well, and it may have just galvanised the club as well. And I know we covered the Castletown Ahearne game on Eaarmhi TV, and Adrian was in along with me, and he just commented on about the great sportsmanship from everybody from Crooked Wood, that after the game they went to Johnny Hardiman. Every Personal man shook hands with him and sympathised with him, and that's lovely to see. I know there are 2 clubs out there together and they're amalgamated for underage, but still there'll be no love lost when it'll be coming to a hurling field. So, it was a good week for Ringtown to finish off that way. And Pat and Eamonn, I'll throw this at you. How do you like going into play a team for the second time and you've either won or lost it? Like, who would you like to go in on the revenge mission, or do you have the psychological advantage of playing, having got a win over them once?
I'd like to go in on the revenge mission. It's always I find it easier to get a team up for it in the week or the fortnight prior to that. It's when you beat the team, you have to stay up there. It's harder to stay up there than get up there. So I'd be one for going in all guns blazing.
I wouldn't really mind, to be honest with you. If we were able to beat them once, there's no reason why you can't beat them twice. If you failed once, well, you'll always look on it and see, well, where, if it depends on the scoreline. If it was fairly tight, look, it's a toss of a coin. There's a little bit of bounce of the ball, a bit of luck. It could have been a better use of the wind, maybe a free take or whatever. You don't want to dwell on it much at the end of the day, because, it's like a racehorse. He could be primed for 2 races and he could run out of his skin one day and he just might wake up not feeling the best the next day. It's just you won't get the same performance. So I wouldn't read an awful lot into it. Both teams, I'll go into it, as Eamonn said, one is going in for revenge and the other is saying, well, sure, we done it the first day, we'll do it the second day. So it's all in the mindset. But just looking at the Cullion result, we did state it was a disappointing year, but it didn't just start this year. It started last year. They went through the season last year unbeaten, unwinnable, until the very last game, which was against Castletown's second string. And we did state at the time that their big guns had to step up and get a result to keep them in it. And they done that. But we did also state this year that there was no second strings in the Senior B this year. This was cut and trust. If you don't get the points on the board, you're not going to stay there. And well, that's exactly what happened. The county players did, after the first round, really dig deep, to try and get them over the line. But they came up short, and there'd be a lot of soul searching in it, because it's not that long ago since Cullion were at the top table in the senior, they were there. So back at the intermediate, that's it. You just have to draw a line under it and start afresh and start working with whatever youth you have down there and bring them forward, because there's nowhere else to go only back up.
Can't go any lower.
Well, it's whether they like it or don't like it, they're there for next year, so they have to work hard. But as I said, the table doesn't lie, and we're in trouble last year. and they didn't address it properly. Whatever way it went about it, it didn't seem to work, because the scorelines, you know, went against them all the way down along, you know. So, I mean, the very first game out, they ended up, you know, Delvin gave them a fierce trimming. Yeah. You know, it's 4-11 to 2-10, but I remember Jack Gillen got 2 goals and a point from frees that day. You know, and they were in the latter part of the day. Absolutely. You know, you would imagine your first game coming out of a bad season last year, say, well, this year we're going to change this, we're going to get on the front foot, set a tone for the rest of the season. So
the table finished with Oliver Plunkett's on top by virtue of the head-to-head win over Delvin. Delvin then go into a semi-final where they'll play Ringtown. Ringtown finished third on 6 points. The Wood and Brownston finished with 4 and Cullion pointless. Now that means that on Sunday, the 5th of October, semi-final in TG Cusick Park, 2:15, and then Ringtown live on Eaarmhi TV. So that's one certainly to put in our notebooks, and it's 2 weeks' time, so we look forward to that game. Moving on to the senior. The scores from the last game. Loughlin Gales 320, Castlepollard 111. Sunkill 217, Falladaltas 314, a draw. And the game carried live on Eaarmhi TV, Castlegagan 3-6, Ahearne 17 points. Eamonn, just quick one on your own game. By all accounts, from what I'm led to believe, Falladaltas should have come out here with the win.
It possibly could. And it's like what I was saying earlier on, at the senior, if you make mistakes, you'll get punished. And we made a couple of mistakes in the second half and we got punished for them. But in fairness to the boys, they battled back and they got their just reward at the end. Super goal from Colin O'Rourke. And it was like a defeat, even though under normal circumstances you'd take a draw with both hands the morning of the game, but we were disappointed that we didn't hold out.
Pat, moving on, time is against it a little bit. Castlegagan 316, Ahearne 17 points. 8 points, the difference in the end. There wasn't that much in it for a long time during that game.
no, there wasn't. I suppose Castletown probably didn't give their best performance of the season. You know, they were probably, first and foremost, Ahearne got stuck into it, and they were very physical and really up for the game. Now, it's hard to know the mindset of John on the day, whether he knew that to win, he'd have to win very convincingly. So possibly, my thinking, what he had in mind was to give as much game time to a lot of different players. And, you know, he started a team that possibly won't be starting in the semi-final. He brought on lads that they weren't injured, but they were starters all season and they came on. So he did get game, you know, time. It was a kind of a game management, but I'd say he was happy enough. You know, like Castletown got a lucky goal in one sense, where the sun came out and it was strong, and unfortunately the goalkeeper was unsighted. You know, they got a couple of breaks here and there. Now, it was a difficult day, you know, with the wind, the way it was kind of crisscross on the field, and then there was an immersive shower there for about 10 minutes before half time. You know, but I'd say Alan wouldn't be over happy with a lot of the work rate of the Castletown team, and just on the day they just done enough to get by, you know, and that was all I suppose that was required, you know, just to get into it.
He has what, 3-4 weeks of a break now, and you know, probably a good way to be going into a lead up to a final. You go back, you circle the wagons again. You've plenty of stuff to beat them with, to improve on and stuff like that. The Gales, very impressive, 320, Castlepollard 111. You know, bad year for Castlepollard. They go down back to Senior B, pointless from their 5 games. But look, Eamonn, mightn't be the worst thing in the world that happened to them. You know, the blood in a lot of players. We've spoken on this podcast through the year about 6 or 7 of their players that were starters now living and working in Australia. So they have blooded young lads. So might be a chance for just to get a little bit of confidence going back to Senior B and win a couple of games and turn it around.
I don't think it's any harm at all. They won't see it that way, but I don't think it's a chance for a club to regroup. And when you're going in, year out and struggling at a senior level, it's very hard to get the momentum up and maintain that momentum. Young lads, they like to win games. Some of them don't care what it is, as long as they're winning games. So 1 or 2 wins next year in the Senior B, and Castlebar will be gunning it'll bring enthusiasm all across the club as underage and everything, and players will be reinvigorated and they'll go at it. And then quite possibly, if they win it, there's no guarantee they will win it, but if they do win it, the more than Daltons, they'll give the following year a right cut at it.
Yeah.
We don't want to be back down where we were, and so on and so on.
The Gaels impressive pass with 320. Sorry, you were saying something.
Well, just on the Pollard, like you know, they will find it difficult now when they go down to senior. We said all along that the senior B is the most competitive, and like whoever loses a semi-final and the final in senior B will be gutted, and they will be saying, well, we're going to make sure we get whatever positives we have, take out of it this year, get it together for next year, and make sure we have that chance to go back up into senior. Because you think of it, you know, Delvin, Oliver Plunkett's, you know, they have been up there, you know, and they're going to say, well, if Father Daltons were here with us for 2 out of the last 3 years and see where they are now. So that's their target and that as well. Like on the Gaels have been a force all year. Like they have been getting good scores. The Williamses have been good. The Kennedys are coming very, very strong at the right time of the year. They're hurling well. Look, they're on a mission, and we said it all along. They're a team that has to be stopped if you're going to win the championship, and they will be hard stopped, you know. And look, there's a lot of people out there that would be more than delighted to see them, because they had, you know, they were a traditional hurling club for the last 20 years with some fantastic hurlers down through our time. Myself and Eamonn's time played with the best of them. And, you know, at the latter, and yourself, sorry. And like at the end of the day, you know, they were lucky in the last 2 years, they could say. They come back again, and who's to know that they'll be back in the final again. Yeah. They have a daunting task again, or Ahearne also, but they're in the right position.
Yeah, that semi-final Ahearne Loughlane Gaels on Sunday the 5th, TGQ Park, 4 o'clock, also live on Eaarmhi TV. Yeah, I mean, there's great credit due to Joey Williams. You know, he had heartbreak 2 years ago. You know, he looked like he had his team fired last year coming into the first final that was called off due to the weather conditions. And I suppose it's fair to say Castleton reorganised themselves and weren't, you know, caught flat-footed in the second game. But like, to bring them back, you know, to keep going to the well and keep getting the success in these lads is great credit to Joey and the whole group.
Oh, I give them 10 out of 10 from that scenario. It's very easy to walk away and turn your back, but they've kept at it for the last number of years, and each year they come back to win, and that's what they're going to do. And I firmly believe they will have a right cut at it. Whoever wins between the Gaels and Ahearne, Castleton will be firm favourites. They'll have nothing to lose, and it's a great way to go into a county final, and you know, county finals can go anywhere.
Yeah, it's on the day.
On the day, weather-wise, everything.
The Gaels have a lot of players there. Like, I mean, Tommy Doyle is giving great service from, you know, underage right through to senior, and a lot of people wouldn't begrudge him, you know, senior men. But you know, you don't get anything for just turning up and whatever. They'll have to earn it the hard way. So look at the hurling championships come right down to the end. Castleton topped that table 5-5, and the lads couldn't have done any more. The Gaels are in Ahearne. The Gaels finished second with 8 points, only beaten once. Ahearne with 6 points, win 3, lose 2. Clonkinnon and Father Daltons level on 3 points each, and Castlebar, we've already said, gone back down. So look, lads, we've a lot to look forward to hurling. We've a break again for this week because of the quarterfinals of the football championship. So it's another week. We have to wait for these 4 semi-finals, you know, for the hurling. We look forward to it immensely. We're going to finish up here because we're back here with our second podcast tonight. 2 for the price of 1 tonight, lads. Back with the football podcast in about 10 minutes or so. I want to thank Eamonn particularly for coming in, joining us, giving us his outlook on the senior and on the hurling. Pat, as always, very good. Before I finish up, the lads keep telling me I need to be reminding everyone, we need likes, we need shares, we need subscriptions. If you watch us, if you enjoy what we're saying, what we're giving out, some of the rubbish we talk, whatever it is, we do our best to be informative or whatever. Give us a like, give us a subscribe on YouTube or on the Facebook. But for now, we're going to say goodbye for the Hurling podcast. We'll be back with 2 new guests in about 10 minutes or so. We'll be back live on air with football pundits looking back at this weekend's club championship games. But from myself and from Pat and Eamonn, we're saying goodbye for now. Good evening, everybody. I think we're still on episode 11 of the Iarmhi TV Club podcast. This time we're going to discuss all things football. So, big change around in the set because I now like to welcome on my right hand side Paul Ahearne. Paul, viewers or regulars would have seen him previously, but on my left hand side Eddie Casey has joined us for the first time. So again, lads, you're both very, very welcome. Before we get into talking about the weekend's football or whatever, I just want to give a few scores from the LGFA senior, intermediate and junior semi-finals that were played yesterday, because next week, as part of our Iarmhi TV Club podcast, we will have representatives in from the LGFA, from some of the clubs, maybe some players, whatever. We definitely will have people in here, and we will be previewing all their finals that are coming up the following week. And the senior semi-finals, Milltown 213, the Downs 3 points, St. Lomans 311, St. Mary's Rocherbridge 6 points. So that's Milltown and St. Lomans in the county final in the senior ladies final. Intermediate results: Loughnavalley 310, Colliery 3-2, and Goldsmiths 4-7, Moore 10 points. So Goldsmiths and Loughnavalley set for an intermediate final. And in the junior, Logan Derby coming up, Terrace Pass 4-12, St. Paul's Delvin 3-10, and Milltown Pass 3-10, Clonagale 3-4. So Terrace Pass and Milltown Pass, looking forward to an eagerly contested final in that one. No love lost there between the two sides. Don't be sneering at me now, you. I'm only sitting in the middle here between Rocherbridge and in the two of them. So look, as I said, we're going to have somebody in next week to talk about them. So we'll get more of an insight on what we can look forward to in the ladies' finals coming up. I think they're on the 4th of October, as far as I'm aware, but we'll know more come next week. Lads, look back at the round of games yesterday and Saturday this weekend. I'm going to just go through the results in the junior, because we're going to be looking forward to quarter-finals coming up this week. But the Section B, now I don't know why they made it Section B, because it's for the sole junior team. St. Joseph's 2-5, Bunbrusson 9 points. Ballycarrigy 16 points, Moat, All Whites 1-8, and Ballagore 4-15, Ballycamoyle 1-1. The good thing about that one, Paul, I think you were here last week, we were talking about Ballycamoyle had failed to field in the last round, so nice to see them. They gathered up 15 from wherever, so at least they've fulfilled their fixture there in that one. And in the Junior 1 Section A, it was Mullingar 5-20, Killucan 5 points, the Downs 1-19, Coruscant Kilgad 1-9, and St. Lomans 2-15 at Athlone 9 points. So that means at the end of all this, we have 4 quarter-finals coming up now. The Junior Championship, where the sole junior teams now come back in and play the second string teams. So on the Saturday the 27th, in Rocherbridge at half two, we have the Downs and St. Joseph's, and that's going to be followed by Athlone and Ballynagore at 4 p.m. also in Rocherbridge, so double header there for that one. And in the other two quarter-finals, Mullingar Shamrocks against Bunbrusson is on the Sunday at 1 o'clock in Killucan, and the final one, St. Lomans and Ballycarrigy, 1 o'clock in Shandona. Now lads, I don't know how much you know about the Junior Championship, but I've already been said on it, Paul, it's like 2 championships. You got to play for your place and then come out and then really have a go at the championship. There's some mouth-watering clashes due up here in these quarter-finals.
Oh yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. And like, you know, for the sole junior clubs, it's a real dogfight to first of all get into that quarter-final, and you know, it's their focus and it's the whole focus of the club. Whereas on the other side, you know, you've got the second team or the third team in a particular club, and it's probably, while it's focus for those guys and those players, it's probably not the only focus in the club. So they tend to kind of, you know, they get the benefit of training with their senior teams and get that sort of exposure. But, you know, certainly, you know, kind of 2 names that jump out to me would be, you know, Joseph's and Ballynagore, looking forward to kind of both trying to get out of those junior ranks after making progress over the last few years. And they've got 2 tough games. Downs and Athlone have gone reasonably well in their group. Shamrocks topped the group, I think. Yeah. And was it Lomans that came second, I think, as well. You know, they're the two stronger ones of those of the larger clubs. So that's going to be an interesting one. You know, Bunbrusna have been thereabouts and very dogged in terms of both rebuilding and competing. And Balnacargy, who, you know, a couple of years ago were up intermediate, came back down and are looking to get back up. So those games will be very, very interesting.
Yeah, Eddie, you probably haven't seen many of the games in that junior level, but you know, on paper we have some crackers. Balnagore came up from junior 2 last year. You know, after years in the doldrums, Michael Ennis has, you know, certainly rounded up the troops there, and they put in a huge effort. Momentum then is a great thing coming into a junior championship, and they've gone 5 from 5.
Yeah, like, you know, Mick is not going to be lacking for any passion or brains on the sideline, and Ballinagore coming into a junior quarter final, like, it really, you know, you'd be looking at them strongly. I always feel that Ballinacurry are a good championship team. You know, I'd be wary of playing Ballinacurry in a quarter final. They seem to get themselves there, you know, they'll be struggling there during the league and things mightn't be going right, and all of a sudden it's bang, and they could have 20, they have the panel. If you know, I know over the years I've seen Ballinacurry tugged out in county finals, and they could have 25, 30, 35 lads, like, and when they're going well, they're a hard team to get the better of, like, you know, and they'll put it up to Lomans in Shandona. I know a little bit about the Lomans team. A lot of them are there on the panel with the senior team, so they've played, as Paul was saying, like, they've done a lot of training with the seniors. They're mixed in, so they'll probably play the same system as the seniors. But Ballina will be a tough cookie to crack on Sunday evening.
Sunday evening. Yeah, Paul, you know, when you're the Soul juniors would play a different brand of football. Isn't it fair to say than, say, the second string seniors? Because Eddie said you might have young lads there and you're trying to blood them, put them in a system that same as your top team is playing or whatever. And you know, these boys are hardened individuals as well, then coming from the Soul Junior Club. So it can be, you know, kind of a baptism of fire for the second strings coming up against them other lads.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't go so far as to say they play a different brand of football, you know, and it's kind of easy kind of fall into the stereotype of junior football being tough, agricultural, you know, and so on. Like, all those junior teams, they're setting themselves up according to the players that they have and building a system around that will work best for them, and they've been focused on that and nothing else the whole way through the year. You know, whereas you look at the second strings in the senior clubs, yeah, they've been coached along with the seniors probably and kind of learned how that system is, but they're being coached with a whole bunch of other fellas and not really working. And sometimes, you know, what you can find with those second teams is they don't necessarily have the cohesiveness together because they don't really train together. They train with 20, 30 other fellas who are focused on senior, and sometimes that can be a bit of a downfall for them.
Ballinagore probably, you know, just looking at the tables, they topped the table 5 from 5. Joseph's 4 out of 5, finished second with 8 points. Ballinacurry won 3, lost 2, and Bunn came in with winning 2, losing 3, and then both all whites, and Ballycomoyle, the two that missed out in that group. But St. Joseph's beaten the county final last year, so they'll be, you know, they'll be hoping to go one step further. And like, they lost out to a Castown from 18 that have done themselves justice in an intermediate championship this year as well.
Yeah, like St. Joseph's, like, I suppose it's so hard for them to come every couple of years. They come like maybe every X amount of years. It could be 10, 15, it could be 20 years, and this is probably their best team for a number of years. And like, they'll just go to the Downs. There'll be so much, I suppose hunger is a word that they'll use. They have to be hungrier than the Downs. You know, they have to be hungrier on the Downs on Saturday. Another team that I always kind of like looking at championship time is St. Paul's, to see what they're, you know, a lot of them are focused on hurling with Brownstown during the year, like, and will they come with some of those hurlers concentrating on the football, no more than the Finney concentrating on the Pollard lads and bits and pieces? Will they have a few players who maybe didn't play in the league section?
Yeah, that's part of the junior 2 now. That's the semi-finals as well there. Paul's and Colliery in one, and Delvin Turles Pass in the other one. They're on Sunday. The 28th, 11:30 in the morning, both those again. The Paul's Colliery game in Shandon at 11:30. Delvin Thurs passing Killucan at 11:30. Brownstown completed their hurling campaign. They're safe in Section B. So I suppose it's all focus turns now onto the football in that Section B. These are 2 quarter-finals. I think Gary Castle and Colliery. No, not Colliery. I'll get the other team in a second. They topped the table. Tubber Slayer actually. And they topped the table. So 6 out of the 8 teams going through to the knockout stages. So like Delvin and Paul's will be on the first teams.
Yes.
So will it leave them stronger? Like Thurs Pass went out. In the last round of games, Colliery have qualified for knockout stages. Maybe they'll have an advantage then. The lads will be training still with their first team as well.
Yeah, and I think, two things kind of strike me that Eddie kind of touched on. One is, Browne or Paul's will have a clean run of Brownstown or finish their hurling championship now, whereas Delvin are in the semi-final of the Senior B in the hurling, and they're kind of, straddling two horses as they kind of come down the straight there from that point of view. And Delvin had a good year last year, didn't finish the way they wanted it to finish from a football point of view, but they're no more than a Joseph's looking to get back and see if they can move up a division.
Yeah, the junior championship again hotly contested every year, and even the junior 2 we've seen Ballynagore coming out with last year, and certainly looking the part then coming forward into the junior 1. And one player I'm sure you well know all about him, Eddie, is Thomas McDaniels, has come back into that Ballynagore team, and like last year he was playing senior football with Castleknock up in Dublin, so he'll be a big leader for this team, and he'll be very pivotal in how they progress through the championship.
Like forwards just make that level. Like he's a senior ex-inter-county player playing senior club football in Dublin. Like you're thinking to yourself, like how many men are we going to have to put on him? Like we're going to have to put 2, 3 on him. Like, and I suppose Ballynagore are expecting half their scores from Tom. Like and like he's a super player, and at that level he's a super player, I suppose you could put it.
Yeah. But look at there's 4 quarter-finals there in Junior 1, 2 quarter-finals in Junior 2. That'll be very, very interesting. And because of the second string teams, we don't know very much about them. It'd be nice, I think, no more than in the Pat O'Brien said in the Hurling podcast, it'd be nice if we could get 4 sole junior teams into the semi-finals and have, as you were saying before off camera, 4 proper junior championship on it, but nothing guaranteed in that either. But
it's like, I suppose the sole junior teams, their focus is junior championship, or the senior teams, their focus is senior championship. And for the likes of St. Joseph's to win a junior championship and compete at intermediate, it's some achievement for them. And the same with Ballynagore, they shoot above their level for years there at intermediate and senior. Like, so again, I'd agree with what Pat was saying. If the 4 junior teams got in, I don't think any of the senior clubs would be. I think that's fair, and I don't think we're being biased or unkind to anyone on that. Look, at moving forward to the games over the weekend in the intermediate Section B. Now, remember, we had a game played during the week. There was an injury during the Kilbeggan Maryland game, which was played 2 weeks ago, and that game was played on Tuesday night, and it had a big bearing on how the championship fared out, because Maryland won this time 112 to 110, and then at the weekend Ballymore 117, Kilbeggan 14 points, Castledaly 219, Maryland 13 points, and maybe a bit of a surprise, Castletownfene Cool Whitehall 3-7, Milltown Pass 1-9. Now that meant in that group at the table for the Section B, Milltown Pass topped the table. They were already through to a quarter final going into the weekend anyway. 4 out of 5, they finished with 8 points. Castledaly scraped into second place then by virtue of their win at the weekend, so they go into the quarter final, 3 wins, 2 losses. Castletownfene Cool Whitehall, 3 wins, 2 losses, but miss out on I think on the score difference on it as well, and I'm sure maybe on the head-to-head. I certainly don't go into understand any of these how these head-to-head or these games. But anyway, Ballymore did well, saved themselves from relegation, got themselves out with 4 points. Maryland also with 4 points, and then Kilbeggan, by virtue of the defeat during the week and the defeat on yesterday,
end up going back to the junior ranks. But we'll look at some of those games at the weekend. Paul, I'm not sure whether you were in the park to see some of them, but in that section B, Castledaly yesterday, very impressive winners over Maryland.
Yeah, that was a big game for them. You know, they came into it kind of up and down sort of a season. They haven't been scoring a lot. And, you know, Teddy's point earlier about, you know, Ballynagore, they don't really have a marquee forward who's kind of giving them 5-6 points a game, looking back over the results so far. But that kind of, I think it's probably head-to-head that they had over Castletownfene, and, you know, that obviously put them into the quarter-final. And you know, they're there on merit. They got the points and they got the results, and you know they'd fancy themselves going forward now. Like, you know, I mean, they've a big game, you know, against Milltown to come in the quarter final, but you know they've a great mix of kind of young and experienced in their group, and you know they never really kind of, I suppose, set the world on fire from scoring stakes, but they're very, very dogged and very, very organised and very hard to break down.
Yeah, impressive yesterday for them. I have to mention Larkin Dolan. Larkin's an inter-county forward as well.
Yeah.
Playing at intermediate, you know, he's 2 or 3 grades below where he's playing at senior football with Westmeath and that, and he was impressive yesterday. He led the line well. They got him isolated inside. He picked off some great scores. Kevin Stone was good at full forward. Alan Stone, strong as a horse as always. Castledaly, when they go, you know, get a sniff of a knockout, you know, I mean, anything can happen for them, even though they're going to be right up against them playing Milltown.
Well, they will be, but the thing that kind of struck me when I was kind of looking back over the table is they've only conceded 68 points, and it could be, you know, I could be wrong, but it's among the lowest, certainly. So they've got a really, really mean defence. So that's going to be a challenge for Milltown in terms of, you know, maintaining. You know, Milltown have been scoring reasonably freely in Section A. It's going to be a challenge for Castledaly coming up against a stronger forward line. Will their defence and their organisation there hold it strong?
Castletownfene, Cool Whitehall 3-7, Milltown Pass 1-9. Now I'd say David Martin and his men there will be disappointed. You know, it'd be nice to have momentum going into a quarter final with only a 6-day turnaround. You know, they would have, I'm sure, keep that record going.
They were probably trying to mind a few players and keep an eye and keep a bit of hunger going, or something to work on in training, and sometimes it can go away from me a little bit. But I suppose in Milltown Pass's favour, like, they've some of the best forwards at intermediate level when they're fit, particularly Finbar Coyne. Like, he impressed me over the years, and he's moving well this year, he's going well. And you've Brandon Kelly there as well in the forward line. I like him as well. I think they're 2 good players. I think they're dangerous. They're dangerous players, like, you know. And maybe it was just a slip. Maybe they were taking it easy. Maybe there were lads injured. Like, the championship is very quick fire, Ray. It's like week after week, and you know you need to keep lads fit, like.
Yeah, I was got like, and I think Eddie's right. Like, there are two marquee forwards. I think the real challenge is is it a 6-day turnaround for them? You know, everything is coasting the whole way through the year. Win, scoring freely. Brandon Kelly scoring goals for sport and so on. And then suddenly you hit a performance where, you know, truth be told, they would have expected to win. And then you're going in 6 days, which is really kind of like 1.5 training sessions to try and sort it out and get things going again. And you're coming up against, you know, a team from the division above you in Multifarnham who, you know, have had kind of ups and downs from that point of view, but you really kind of want to get your momentum back. Really
I suppose the perfect scenario for Milltown Pass would have been to have that game earlier on in the championship. And now you've got your 6-day turnaround, and now you're saying you're in the dressing room there now, you're trying to say, right, okay, we're here, we're there, and we don't know where they are, but like, I think they'll be okay though. Yeah. I think they'll be in a good frame of mind, and look, there's not going to be much in that game.
Yeah, look, and I suppose the other side, they're going into a quarter final, having underperformed in the last group game, but now there's no second chances. It's the last chance saloon here now. Yeah. A defeat and your year is gone. Yeah,
and I mean, like, when you look back over the course of the year, forwards wise, they've been scoring reasonably freely in all their games, and they've got options there, as Eddie was saying, in terms of 2 or 3 really good forwards from that point of view. And defensively, they've been really, really solid, notwithstanding the fact that they lost yesterday.
Yeah, I think Riley has been playing at 6 for them. He's a good player. Riley's been playing. Playing, like he's a solid player. And like they went to a couple of county, like I suppose they got beaten in a couple of county finals in the last couple of years. That knocks you back a peg, but maybe they've got that little break to come now and maybe have a go at it. But like multi-year know how to win games and know how to win knockout games has been seen the last couple of years.
Yeah, in Castlefine, just before we leave, I believe just talking to someone there earlier this evening about that game, very impressive. Darren McCormick seemingly did what he wanted, like. So then Tom Pass, if they had tuned out a little bit, if they were only at 90% or there, but they'll definitely want to turn up the volume to get it up to 100% this weekend, going into play multi. We'll look at the games in that section A just in a second. The last game in that group, Ballymore 170, Kilbeggan 14 points. It's a disappointing end to the year for Kilbeggan. They go back to junior. I think they're only up 2 years. The game on Tuesday night, was postponed previously, so they ended up with 2 games in 5 days, something like that. And it's hard when you lose one. It's hard to get up again in a couple of days, but even knowing what was at stake. And Ballymore, I think Paul, we said at the last time, they know how to dig out these wins.
No, absolutely. And the other part about it was, those Ballymore guys are coming off Dalton's having a really good year and finishing out the year really, really strong from a hurling point of view. And, they're coming into it, even though from a football point of view it might have been up and down, a lot of those players are coming in with a lot of momentum and a lot of energy, going into that game, going one game, can we get ourselves out first? Kilbeggan, on the other hand, when I think they were winning reasonably when that game was abandoned against Maryland. Then they have to come back out and play it again. It doesn't go their way, and then you've got to try and turn it around in 4 or 5 days. And, really kind of, at that end of the tables, whatever division you're in or whatever section you're in, momentum is kind of critical coming into those, say, relegation games, for want of a better word, when those sort of things are at stake.
And then wouldn't have to maybe the strongest or deepest of panels as well. Then it's a fair recovery to go from Tuesday night and knowing then what you're facing then on the Sunday. So it would have been hard on them.
Like nobody would be happy with that turnaround. If you were involved with a team, like playing or managing or doing anything with the team, like it's such a short turnaround, and to get lads back right for the game and mentally as well as everything else, like Ballymore, I think they had a player home from overseas that made a big difference at the weekend, and like Kilbeggan, as you said, coming up from you want to run. I think when you come up from junior, you nearly want to get to that intermediate semi-final or final straight away to keep the buzz going and keep the momentum going, and then you slip back a little bit, and then the season comes and now it's a knockout game. I don't think Ballymore have been junior since since their foundation, like a long time before us, Ray, anyway. And like I know I was talking to 1 or 2 of them last week, they were going to give it all,
they're hard always. Just before we leave that section B, a quick word on Maryland. Would have been happy, I think, a win yesterday would have put them in a quarter final, but they would still have been happy how things have gone. They retained their intermediate status. Watching Kevin Dolan on the sideline, we had Kevin in here on one of the podcasts. I think he used more energy on the sideline yesterday than some of the players did on the field. He was just perpetual motion on it. So, good on Maryland that they retained their status anyway. Going forward into Section A, the results: Milltown 18 points, St Mary's Rochesterbridge 7, Tuberclair 217, Shandona 1-3, and the other big game that was so much riding on was Multi 216, Rosemount 118, 1 point win for Multi. And he will start in that one. A lot of pressure going into that game. On the Multi lads in particular. Rosemount had got a win in their previous game, and that was a winner-take-all game. But talking to some of the Multi lads after the game, and they said they got a team performance where they had been very, very reliable on Ronan Wallace. They got a full team performance yesterday, and they've come up out of Section B now, and they're going to retain that status. They're going to go into a quarter final. You wouldn't know how far they go. They're a team that have been in knockout football before.
they're a good knockout team, and I suppose to say that they got a good team performance, it might be Rosemount put all their eggs on Ronan Wallace, and the rest of the boys got to play, because the talk is you keep Ronan quiet, you're halfway there, which I disagree with. I like McGivney, I like him as a player, and I like young Matty Thornton. He was playing centre forward, captain for Mary's there in the Leinster campaign. He's a heads up footballer. He's prepared to give a kick pass, which a lot of fellas aren't prepared to do. What I see in senior, intermediate and junior at the minute, they're handier to hand pass, but Matty will give that kick pass. So I think Multi, they're coming into play. I think Milltown Pass, Ray, am I correct? Yeah. They have Stardust in Ronan, they have Stardust and Wally, and then they have a few lads around them that aren't too bad, and as we're saying, they've had runs in Leinster. They know how to get over the line. So, and Rosemount will be disappointed. A very traditional Westmeath club comes in like a real good senior club, and they're going to be disappointed after that they didn't make that quarter final. But onwards and upwards for Multi.
Yeah, and then the bitter pill then to take, losing that game. You're now back into Section B next year, and that can be a dogfight as well. But as you said, Multi move on. Paul, Tubberclare 217, Shandona 1-3. Do we read much into that score?
Well, I sat through it trying to do co-commentary with Paul Doolan, and when I kind of thought about it afterwards, it was almost like, well, first thing was Shandona had 4 changes straight off the bat, and when you looked at who came in, Adam Traynor, Ben Traynor, Tom Malloy and Darren Bittu, and it was like, why aren't those guys starting anyway, was the kind of first question I had in my head. So it was like, well, they don't seem at all weakened by that. Now, whether the changes kind of disrupted their kind of pattern of play and how they'd been set up before, but it was really death by 1,000 cuts. It was like Tubberclare just kept clipping away points. The first half, particularly, Shandona shot a fair few wides from, now the wind was a little bit tricky, but definitely ones that should be scoring. I think it was like they only scored a point in the first half of football, and that point came 10 minutes before half time, and that's not a good sign for a team from that point of view. And even despite that, Tubberclare I think had 7 wides in the first half, but the longer the game went on, Tubberclare looked really slick in terms of attack. Their transition was really fast. When they got up and Shandona managed to slow them down, they were really patient in their forward line to create opportunities, to get off, good opportunities for scores. There was 2 guys there, Paul Keegan and Fred Gallagher, were absolutely outstanding. Paul Keegan was like, a Messi type figure, just getting on the ball, laying it off, picking passes, moving it around. Fred Gallagher was, great penetration, great pace, great ability to take a score, and Shandona just didn't have any answer to it. When they got into the forward line, they didn't really create a huge amount of opportunities. They got a goal right at the very end.
61 minutes and only 3 points on the board.
Yeah, and 3 points in 57, 58 minutes. A little bit like, I wouldn't say it's quite so similar to Milltown Pass, but, Shandona had been on a roll, going really well, convincing winners in a lot of games, everything going really well for them. And suddenly that momentum came to a real, it was like a head-on collision. And suddenly, even though they were through and into the semi-final, which, is good for them in a way because they get a 2.5 week break before the next game to kind of fix a lot of things. But I'm sure, Ray Sheridan has a list as long as his arm today in terms of things they need to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. Eddie, Tubberclare, Paul mentioned a number of names there, but he didn't mention Matthew Whittaker, who has just come back from injury from Westmeath, and he was outstanding again. But I know for Tubberclare, their junior 2 team also topped the table, and so there's a lot of work going on down in Tubberclare. I know they've purchased new ground down there for a new pitch right beside the existing one. Huge support from the local community, on fundraising and stuff like that. So they're a team that are well set and are well set if they win this intermediate championship to go forward into the senior.
Well, like they've had 2 really good minor finals, and like I'd say of they're probably the better balanced team in the minor final. The players in each line, and really some outstanding players that are, in my opinion, ready for senior football. Now going back to the Shandona, it's like Shandona. They grabbed the dressing room this week, and from being in that dressing room, it's either going to go one way or the other. It's going to be a positive dressing room coming out of it or a negative dressing room. But like Tuberclare have won. They put their best team out. Whittaker's on for, he's in. We're playing to win this, and we're going straight into this blooming semi-final, and we're ready for wherever we meet. I think Tuberclare are probably the fancy team in the intermediate. Will there be a kick in Shandona? I definitely think there's a kick in Shandona. I definitely think they can bounce back from that. It's going to take a bit of work and a bit of talking in the dressing room. Lads are going to have to sit down and a few home truths. But at the moment, Tuberclare are looking the best team in the intermediate football.
I think that's fair.
The thing I just worry a little bit, Eddie, like it was kind of one of the things I just kind of thought coming out of the game is it was almost so easy for Tuberclare that the key for Tuberclare is how do they keep everyone's feet on the ground. That, Shandona had a real off day, things just didn't go any way their direction in relation to it. Everything went really well for Tuberclare. You're suddenly coming out going, we're great, we're on the road to getting to this county final and so on, coming into a semi-final, and it's kind of a little bit of kind of like dialing it back and really finding, where can you get your confidence from that performance and what worked really, really well and you want to keep doing, but what are the other things that we really need to dial into as well.
But they were impressive, there's no doubt about it. Talking to Ray Sheridan before the game, I was just asking him about the permutations of losing or whatever, and I think he said, well, one side, the only difference was who they would get in a semi-final. They were already in, and it can be hard, but I think he said it's either going to be Milltown if we go one way, or it'll be Milltown Pass and Multi if we go the other way. So he reckoned it wasn't much difference in it anyway, but look, I'm sure he'll galvanise them out there.
I think so. I think so.
This weekend.
I think so.
They've
no option.
No, they have the ability out there.
They have the ability.
The senior team, they lost their senior status by 1 point in a playoff last year. So, if they ever a club or a team needed a kick up in the where, I think they got it, and I think it's now comes down how they react. But I think they will react well.
I think so too.
Milltown have progressed nicely. They think they lost their first game in the group. But a comfort win over St Mary's Rochester, 18 points to 7. They go in third place into the table, coming in now to a quarter final.
Castledaly.
Yes, Castledaly.
That's on
a Saturday.
Yeah.
2 intermediate quarterfinals this weekend. Saturday, the 27th, Milltown and Castledaly in TG Cusick Park. Live on Eaarmhi TV, and the other one on Sunday, which is Multi and Milltown Pass, 2:30 in TG Cusick Park, also live on Eaarmhi TV. So just a word on Milltown, job done. They go in third place.
Yeah.
They have the experience of being in a county final last year, in the replay as well. They came that close to it, so they'll be quietly confident going into this one now as well.
Yeah, like I thought Milltown had struggled this year without Conor Dillon missing. But really, like I seen them in last year's intermediate final against Gary Castle, and Gary Castle were a fancy team come down from senior, well organised. Like Milltown had them, they had the beating of them that day. Just Gary Castle had that system in place that they were used to playing senior football, and they were able to kind of quieten them down. And in the replay in St Lomans, just ball went for them now. But one thing about Milltown, like they're a right good team, and they're playing. I think they've nearly upped their gear since Conor has been out. And everybody has been up 10%, like Jack Duncan, McGowan, they're playing good football, and I think Lurkin Dolan's a lot on his shoulders. I know young Heaven, I think it's Daniel Heaven good footballer. Yeah, they will cause trouble, and Lurkin Dolan will cause senior defences trouble. But you kind of fancy Milltown a little bit in that game.
St Mary's Rochester Bridgeport, terrible year for them. 5 played, 5 lost. And I suppose they'll look across the table and see Multi, who came up out of Section B with them last year, and Multi have made the quarter final, and the Ridge make the drop back down to Section B, where again it becomes dog eat dog down there. Damien Gavin came in late in the year, but he'll be disappointed that he didn't get a little bit more of a tune over his team.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, it's a disappointing year. You don't get any points on the board in the championship, and really, I mean, look, that Bridge team are a good team. There's good players there. There's definitely, potential for them to be getting into those knockout games, and maybe kind of just going back down and rebuilding, and it'll certainly give them an opportunity to, refocus the minds in terms of, is this something we're happy with? Probably not, or I would imagine not. And let's get going for next year and refocus the minds. And they definitely have the potential within them to be hitting quarterfinals.
Yeah, and sometimes Section A and Section B, some years it can be, one can be weak and one can be very strong, and the senior Section A is probably very strong this year, senior Section B, and it's the same I think the intermediate. Senior Section A intermediate was very strong this year. And look, Damien, we all know Damien well, and look, he gets a good 12 months with the Bridge lads. He'll turn them inside out.
Yeah. 14's qualifying out of that Section A. Tuberclare and Shandon are going straight to the semi-finals, and you have Multi and
Milltown
Pass
join them, and then Castledaly and Milltown Pass out of Section B. So they're the 6 teams that are left in it.
Yeah.
As I said, the semi-final or the quarter-finals, first one on Saturday, Milltown versus Castledaly, 2:30 in TG Park, and the second one on the Sunday, Multi versus Milltown Pass, which will be, I'll definitely be confused between the two Milltowns this weekend anyway. But look at both games there that Milltown Pass will be looking to redeem themselves to go full out. Multi will be delighted to get into a quarter-final show, but now can't remember exactly, did Multi go to a semi-final last year? I know they were beaten on penalties, I think, in the end, put them out of the championship. So they have history, and they'll be hoping to go into a semi-final here.
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, I think the standout thing for me is about attack and defence. Milltown Pass have a super attack and have been really, really getting high scores. On the other side, Multi's defence is not good, and they've shipped a lot of scores. So, like, the key for Multi is really tightening up on the defensive side, and seeing can they limit the sort of damage that Milltown Pass can do.
You'd be able to call it, Paul? What do you think?
The only hesitation I have is because of the loss Milltown Pass had. I mean, I think on the form throughout the championship, you'd have to say Milltown Pass. But, kind of, there had a bit of a wobble. How are they going to react to it? As Eddie said, Multi are a good knockout team and have a lot of experience of kind of grinding through games that they have to win. But I'd give Milltown Pass the edge.
David Martin, there's a little bit of work to do this week, Eddie.
David was a good forward himself, and as I said to you, I think Finbar Coyne without injuries would have been a good county player, and indeed was a good county player until he suffered seriously from injuries. They bring a big support with the Milltown Pass, a lot of pressure on them out there. I find the last couple of years they've come to a lot of county finals and were fancied. Not going to be much in it, but maybe Finbar, Brandon Kelly, maybe to give them the edge up front, where Wally they'll be trying to set traps for Wally, wouldn't they? But it's going to be hard to set traps for him, Yeah, I think so. So
it potentially be a cracker there. Milltown Castledaly, Milltown win as favourites into this. Well, Castledaly with a free cut at it as such. They're back into the Section A for next year. How do you see that one, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, if you're kind of looking at, Milltown, the experience they have from last year, the desire to get back, you'd kind of be going, yeah, probably them. I think the challenge for Milltown is I kind of mentioned it earlier. Castledaly's defence is really, really, really good, and Milltown are reliant on, you've got Jack Murta, Ben McGowan, Jack Duncan. They're still youngish in their development as forwards. And, sometimes tight games like that, they can get bottled up in a very kind of well-structured defence. And, that might prove a bit of a challenge for them to overcome. I mean, you'd still kind of on the evidence of the year so far, you'd be looking at Milltown just having played as Eddie said, in that kind of group of death in Section A. They've gained a lot of experience and ground through, like they had 3 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. So they're a good solid team. It's been a good year for them so far.
Yeah, so they'll be looking to get back and think at least to where they were last year. Moving forward to the senior championship, we look at Section B first, because the big game of the weekend gone by was the meeting of the local rivals Colliery and Moat, and Colliery kind of ended up in the end being comfortable enough winners, 2-18 to Moat 1-13. The second game, Killucan 1-22, Malachy's 1-10, and then surprise, I would think, to a lot of people, Tang 1-18, Garrycastle 1-16. Looking at that Tang-Garrycastle game, is it a situation for Garrycastle? We've mentioned already with Midtown Park.
Yeah.
You've already qualified.
I think Gary.
The rest lads, do you just take the foot off the pedal subconsciously a little bit?
Maybe if you compare the Garrycastle and the Shandon, is just that Garrycastle with that extra bit of experience, a 2-point loss is you can work on a 2-point loss, and you'll probably go into the dressing room. I didn't think of this, I didn't think of that, but I'll think of that next week. And the rest of the few players, and I think Garrycastle are probably, they'll be happy with that result. I know it doesn't suit St. Malachy's, if I'm correct, and I'm thinking that Tang and St. Malachy's have to play again. But Garrycastle will come out with that, no injuries. We kept a few lads on the sideline. Wow, we lost by 2 points, but we're ready to go here for quarter final. Yeah. And Tang absolutely delighted that they can get a rap at St. Malachy's in a relegation game now.
Malachy's beat them in the corresponding game in the group stages, so it's again one of those Malachy's, 12-point defeat, and Tang coming in on a high. It's a short turnaround. I think it's only the week for them, but maybe advantage Tang going into that relegation game.
If you kind of look back over the last few years, Tang have the ability to pull a result out when it matters. If I'm thinking back over the last 2 or 3 years of senior championship, from that point of view, I think the advantage they have going in is they're coming off the back of a win. Malachy's only win in the championship was their first game, I think,
against Tang, and
they've been really challenged since then in terms of getting results and haven't got it. Now, when it comes down to a one-off game, everything else to me goes out the window, really, in reality. Fellas are going into it going, this is our season on the line. So form doesn't really come into it. I mean, they're both scoring about the same, they're both conceding about the same. So it really comes down to desire for me in terms of, how much effort fellas are really willing to put on the line. And I think the second thing is just comes back to a bit of cuteness. What have both teams learned from when they played each other? Who do they need to shut down? Where do they see the weaknesses that they can take advantage of? And are they bringing that into how they set themselves up?
I think there was very little between the sides.
A couple of points, I think.
2 points, I think is all it was.
Yeah.
I know there was a dubious penalty award to Malachy's as well. They got them over the line. So Tang will be remembering all those things going into this one and using everything else. But Alan Mangan, probably the one man that's not happy with the fact that they have to go footballing for another week. I'm sure he was hoping that it would work out, that Malachy's would be finished for the year and there'd be a concentration on hurling. But the lads out there, they're going to have to refocus.
Well, Alan's going to have to get his goalkeeping gloves back on anyway, because he'll be in goals, I'm nearly sure, for this match. But going through the teams like Tang have probably suffered a bit from emigration the last couple of years. There's probably players down. I suppose the only benefit for Castletown is that the county hurling final is a far bit away. If this game was on in 2 to 3 weeks, I think Tang would be fancying themselves. But the game is on this weekend. The hurling lads can say, right, we give the football a lash this week. We concentrate on the hurling from the weekend after it. And you go through the panels and the players, and you look at Malachy's, Johnny Birmingham, the Gavigans, Farley's playing the Murphy, Shane Corcoran. And he said, they're not a bad team,
No.
And Tang have, John Rock is playing well, and Hanley and these guys, but if Malachy's are tuned in, the fitness is there from the hurling and the football. I think Tang have it all to do. I think they have it all to do to beat that St. Malachy's team.
it's an intriguing game. That relegation game is on in Ballymore on Sunday at 2:00.
Yeah.
Tang versus the Malachis. Venue might suit Tang a little bit. Tang are resolute. I think they had small numbers talked out yesterday, but
21, I think, Ray. 21.
But they're used to that. They're used to having 30 plus players, and I really think that they'll go in there. They probably felt, there was a lot of talk last week in the lead up. Well, they were the team that relegated Gary Castle, and Gary Castle will do the same to them this year. But give them huge credit to get that win, and by the skin of their teeth to have another chance. And I think they'll go in with the momentum. They've won. They've plenty to prove against Malachis again. And I know what you think, Paul, but I fancy Tang to get this one.
Yeah, I mean, I just find it I'd edge Tang just because they have that bit momentum of a big win for them from the weekend. But as Eddie said, Malachis have some really, really good footballers, like really, really good footballers, well-conditioned guys. And, on the day, I think, it's probably one of those games that'll come down to a couple of forwards doing something spectacular or a couple of defenders making one or two errors, and there won't be much between them.
And those relegation games, the ones I've been at, they're nervous games. They're nervous games. It's like the crowd is woo-ah, ooh-ah, ooh-ah, and here we go. Like, could it end in penalties? Could it be a draw game? Could it be a draw game after extra time? Could it be penalties? It's...
Yeah.
Like,
last year was a point in that as well. Shandon and Morting won by a point.
Yeah.
And controversial, I think, free near the end or whatever.
it's...
Yeah, there'll be fingernail
and
to the bush.
You can't see a big scoring game, and
weather's given decent, I think, though. That's the only thing for it. So, look at a quick word on Killucan in that group as well. A little bit unfortunate. They got the win that they needed, but just didn't do enough for them, to get into the knockout. They lose out on the mini league as well there. But Killucan, they have played in Section A. They would like to have got back up in there, but not to be. And I suppose John Shaw is the winner in this one, because it's now all focus turned to Hurling for 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, Killucan, I say they're kind of between groups of players. Like they're new players coming through, the Leach guys and the other guys that are coming through, and then they've lost some of the older players that are just concentrating on the one sport and the hurling. So Killucan can beat anybody on their day, and they're that team. Sometimes I've been involved with them, against them before, and sometimes you hate playing them and sometimes you love playing them. It depends what form they're in, and but I think they're in between a movement of players, because they've had some very good underage players the last number of years with schools in Rochester Bridge. A number of them were playing there, and some of the guys in St Mary's. So they're in that transgression period of losing a few of the more established players. But I think they can be a decent senior team when
I'd agree with Eddie.
When they come to town, like they can take a bit of skin out of the park,
Yeah, and they're coming, those young lads coming through there's some really talented,
really good players, really good players.
Can't think of his surname. Sammy Smith. Young Leach. There's a lot of young lads there. They're coming through, and I'd say, obviously they would have liked to be there in the quarter final. Kind of the way the mini league turned out, they didn't get through, but they've consolidated their position and they're building their youth coming through, and that'll give them another year of momentum coming in. I think they're a team to watch for the future.
Everybody would struggle to replace the two Grevels and Joey Boyle and all, everybody would struggle to replace them. But I think Killucan steadied the ship. Yeah. And I think
move forward.
I think they'll move forward next year. Yeah.
The game on Eairmhi TV last night, yesterday evening, Colliery 218, Moathall Whites 113. I think we were level at half time. Looking forward. Jerry Buckley was on co-commentary with me, and we're kind of looking forward to a good ding dong in the second half. And it turned out to be the Conor McCormick Sandon Baker show in the second half, and Colliery really ran out comfortable winners in the end, and both very, very disappointed in the end.
Colliery, Sandon Baker looks an outstanding footballer, and Conor McCormick, he can pinpoint his keeping his goalkeeping kick out. So kicking 2 pointers for him is no problem. You know, it's just ease off him. He kicks the ball, he just kicks off that right boot. It's going where he says it's going. And like Sen Baker, like it looks like the Sen and 2 Baker brothers probably bring county senior, looking at county senior players, you know, not panelists. Like, and yeah, Colliery, like Motor in that period as well, they're kind of they're struggling a little bit just to find their feet at senior, like, you know, and it's going to be an interesting time for them. But Colliery, just there's something about Colliery. They've got like Kevin Maguire still. Is there a better fullback in the county at club level?
No, and he
you know,
and whatever way with the new rules, whatever, Kevin is just all over the field now.
Suits.
He can be anywhere, and that suits him.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, like, they had a disappointing start to the season. I think it was 2 losses. And then they've just been building and getting a lot of momentum going for themselves and so on. You know, and they're going to be coming into quarter-final now, you know, really, really fancying their chances. They're where they wanted to be at the start of the year, in a quarter-final. You know, they'd have probably aspirations to go a bit further than that. And they play Kinnegad.
Yeah, and I like your man midfield as well, the Connolly guy in midfield. Like, I like him. Like, he's a good player. You know, so like.
Yeah, excellent yesterday. But I think Colin McCormick ended the game yesterday with 10 points.
Yeah.
And Shannon Baker was 1-6. I mean, he kicked two pointers off his left foot, not suiting the side for left-footed kicker. He looked majestic, and you know, Jerry Buckley, as I said, was with me yesterday, and Jerry had been kind of flagging Senan as one really top-class player for the future. He did have a horrendous injury, and you know, on a cold day down here, I think he was in Castledaly for Westmeath, tore a hamstring very, very badly, and he's just taking his time to get back. But you know, like you say, they're coming in now with a little bit of momentum.
I would say, like, he wouldn't have much pedigree or anything, like,
no,
you know, Senan.
You know, he would have only got it from the road, like, really, you know. Actually, speaking of the same man, I was talking to him yesterday, and you know, I complimented him on Senan, and I tell you, Senan only well grounded by the time he got home, because he said, well, sure, it's only 1/2 this year, so you know, he'll be looking for another big performance next week from him as well. They go into that quarter final. We look at the other games in the section A before that, but Colliery and Coruscant Kinnegad on the Sunday at 4:15 again, live on Eaarmhi TV. So that's a mouth-watering prospect, as indeed is the one on Saturday between Garrycastle and Mullingar. 2 boys now know all about that one, so we'll talk about the results from section A in a second. That one is at 4:15 also on Saturday, the other at 4:15 on the Sunday. The results from that section A: Coruscant Kinnegad 21, Athlone 2-12, St Lomas 3-16, Turns Pass 1-6, the Downs 15, Mullingar 1-6. I think the last 2 scores, boys, probably fair to say they went as we expected. Would that be fair to say? The Downs and Mullingar, Downs are always favourites going into that game.
Yeah, the Downs look, they're the team in the championship so far, and I think Mullingar no more than Colliery. I said their plan was to get to the quarter-final championship this year, so they're where they want to be now. And that game, they showed, there was glimpses of Mullingar. They started very well against the Downs, and they never looked outclassed or out of the game. A few players still have missed a few players' injury, but I think Mullingar would be happy enough after the game. Yeah. Like they're in their quarter-final, and that was the plan at the start of the year, to get to knockout football.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, like, there was touches of the game where the game took off. First 5 minutes, you know, there was a couple of periods where the Downs really looked like they were going to take control, but then it kind of looked like both teams were really shadow boxing the whole way through it. You know, it's kind of like, we're going to semi-final, you're going to a quarter-final, let's save our players, let's not get any injuries and prepare for what we have down the road from that perspective. You know, it certainly wasn't as fluid a performance as the Downs would have shown in the previous games. Now, whether that was kind of due to the fact that we're through and we're in the semi-final and there's nothing really at stake here for us from that point of view. But it's still, you know, as an attacking threat, you know, Ian Martin, Luke, obviously, Dean Egerton really played well in that game.
Takes a couple of savage points,
you know, really stood out. I think, you know, on Shamrock's side, just found scores a little bit harder to get. They just don't have, you know, that many marquee forwards who can kind of shoot from distance You know, the wind was kind of favouring Shamrocks a bit in the second half, but they really never got into position or got the right player into the right position to get any 2-pointers, which would have really kind of narrowed that gap and kind of made it a bit more exciting towards the end.
From my point of view, I want to mention a player. I think he's been excellent. I've seen him in the last 2 games. He's, again, we keep talking about the twilight years, but I thought Dara Daly was giving an outstanding performance again for Shamrocks in the middle of the field yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I mean, Dara has, well, apart from his shooting for goal in the first minute, you know, it was nearly easier to put it, well, it was harder to put it over the bar than under the bar. But Dara doesn't really get into those positions very often, so kind of give him a hall pass on that one. But his engine was really good in that game. Like I saw him at one stage and he was chasing back and like he was going at a rate of knots, covering back. And, you know, kind of when you get to that age, do you want to be making those hard runs back, chasing back after fellas? Well, he certainly, you couldn't question him on that front.
Credit to him there.
Another player, like if he'd have stayed injury free throughout his career, he'd been a huge addition to Westmeath. Like a brilliant underage player for club and county, and a brilliant senior player for Mullingar Shamrocks, and a brilliant leader. And look, he suffered from injuries. He still has to mind himself in bits and pieces. Like, but if Dara Daly could have kept fit, he'd have been a mainstay on our county midfield for a number of years.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, was it the same Dara Daly that won the golf competition in Mullingar yesterday morning?
He could be the same Dara Daly. He hits a big ball. He doesn't always know where it goes, but he does hit it a long way.
He also had a horse come third in Ballinrobe, I was told as well.
Man of many talents.
Exactly.
Man of many talents, of course. Famous family, I got his uncle down on the sideline with Mowat yesterday.
Yeah.
St. Oman's Terrace Pass 3-16-1-6 and the result it relegates Terrace Pass and puts Lomans now, as it turns out, into a semi-final. And I suppose at the start of the year they might have fallen into it as a turn, but that was the aim, get into a semi-final, and here they are.
That's where like St. Lomans, that's where they want to be. They're in the semi-final and nobody will want to play them in the semi-final. You know, nobody's going to want to play them. TJ Cox is back in business. You know, he needs minding. John Heslin's back in business. He needs minding. And you throw in the other guys, like, you know, St. Lomans are going to be thereabouts. And I think it's 10 finals going for in a row, or they're going for 11 finals in a row. It's some achievement. And they're where they wanted to be. Paddy Dowdall, he'll have them tuned in. I'm sure they're going to have a little bit of hunger after the Shamrocks game. It's going to drive them on a little bit. Get the dressing room right, get the training right. And like, you'd love their forward line. Yeah,
absolutely. Sam McCartan has been, you know, Sam is almost like Luke. You know, when you mention the first name, we know who we're talking about. You know, and he has been outstanding. He's come really back in after injury. You know, minded them well. You know, nursed them along, played them when they needed to play them, and Lomans their team coming into form now at the right time.
Yeah, like it was funny enough. Like I'd say it's the first time Lomans have been in a game where, if they didn't win, they were out of the championship, which wasn't a knockout one. So it was an unusual situation for them to be in, and you know, it was a big question to be asked of them from that point of view. I think Terrace Pass, probably injuries caught up on them, and maybe that lack of depth that they had in their panel. It was probably just one game too far for them in relation to that. But like as Eddie was saying, you know, you have, you know, probably 4 or 5, you know, forwards that any club team in the county would put starting and guarantee you scores. Makes it really hard for any team playing against them who you're trying to shut down from that point of view. So I mean, they're back where they want. You know, probably haven't sparked the performance that they want, but where do you want that performance? You want it in a semi-final or a final.
With the 2-pointers being so important, like most teams have 1 2-point shooter, maybe 1.5 2-point shooters. Like St. Lomans, like, are 2-point shooters. You have Sam coming from a 6 or 8 or wherever he plays, because he plays all over. It's very hard to say what positions he actually playing. And then you have John Heslin, you've got Demo hitting them, like, so it's the 2-pointers everywhere. Like, as I said at the start of the conversation about St. Lomans, they're a team you don't want to be meeting in the semi-final.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Probably the most talked about game of the weekend was the win for Coruscant Kilgad over Athlone, 21 points to 212. Now, we were kind of following this score on Twitter, I think with 15 minutes to go, Carson Kilgann were 8-9 points behind, and there was nearly gasp in the stand when the final result was called out, and you know, somebody said, "Oh, Jack must have gone home and Carson Kilgann started to play football or whatever." But I believe, from what I hear, they kicked a great number of 2-pointers in the last 15 minutes. I think they scored maybe 5 2-pointers in the last 15 minutes.
I don't know. I mean, it was like I was in the park and, like everyone else, following it on Twitter. So you get a 15-minute in score, you get a 30-minute score, you get a 15-minute into the second half score, and I'm kind of looking at it going, just look at Lone, look like they've the business done, and like everyone else, then the scoreline was announced in the park, and it was like, what happened?
Right?
Well, it was like I'd love to see the video of the last 15 minutes. That's all I can say about it, because that was some turnaround.
Yeah, I was talking to some of the Kilgann lads, or heard from them, and you know, with 10 minutes to go, they were kind of saying, "Well, good luck, our goose is cooked, we're gone." And you know, the next correspondence was, "Well, we're in a quarter final," and I think in that game they were 9 points behind, I think, at one stage, and got level, and Lone went ahead again, and they finished, I think, with 2-2-pointers. To win by 3, like, which was a phenomenal, you know, victory for them. Like, look, let's be honest, Carson Kilgann we know what they're capable of. They haven't shown it so far, but no more than what we said about Lomans, their aim was to get into the knockout stage. They're going to go into a knockout game now against Colliery, 2 teams that have, you know, positive last game. That has another makings of a cracking game. And look, you can't write off Kilgann. Gerald seemingly was absolutely on fire yesterday for them. Like Darren Giles, I think Pal Giles came up and kicked one of the last 2 points as well. So 2 points.
Darren kicked 8 points.
Yeah.
I think he's 3 from frees, so 5 from play. Like, and like, I suppose Kinnegad, they're a team you're there saying, can they, will they? And the more somebody asked me earlier on this, I asked a well-known, how would you say, pundit, who did he was outside for the championship in football. He said Athlone, and I said you could have lost if you were back in the football teams during the championship. You could be losing a lot of money, because you know there was a lot of strange results, and this is another one. But will this gel this Kinnegad team? Will it put them on a forward momentum? Like, now they're in a quarter final, like they have players. Like, they have players. Darren Giles is as good a left foot as there is in the county. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have Brian Cooney, like, if he's there, he's dangerous. He can score, like, and then you go Ger and you know. So will it gel this Kinnegad team? And like, there's one man that'll, you know, if Colliery, one man, Senan Baker, he'll come up with a plan for those lads, you know, and it's going to be interesting, Ray.
That's a good go on, Paul.
Yeah, no, it's just, I mean, like, the thing, kind of as you were talking, was like, that's 2 games in the championship where Kinnegad have cut loose in the second half, against Shamrocks and against Athlone, and in both games really high scores. And then, you know, kind of, and I'm just doing rudimentary maths here, but probably they scored about 50% of what they've scored in the championship in 2 games, which means in some games they're 20, 22 points scoring, in other games they're 10, 11, 12 points scoring. And I think there's something in that for Jack and those lads to go, what are we doing when we get on fire and we're scoring? What are we doing that's getting us to that position? And they need to start recreating that, because, you know, when you're getting 22 points, I can't remember what it was in the Shamrocks game, it was a big score line as well that they rattled up there. You know, they certainly have a lot of potency with Leach, with Giles, with Brian Cooney in their forward line. And some games they're getting it out of them, some games they're not. And, you know, what's the thing that's going to get that out of them?
Yeah, well, there's no more second chances. They have to get it out of them from here on in, because it's knockout stage. Before we leave the weekend results, 2 teams relegated, Thurs Pass and Athlone. And I mean, Athlone had a great start to the championship. Probably were disappointed they didn't get a win over Lomans in the opening game of the championship, and it ended up disappointingly for Owen Jordan in the end that Athlone were relegated, because Athlone have plenty of football as well, and you know, I think maybe they underperformed in some of the games, and they'll be disappointing going back down to Section B as well.
Yeah, as I said, Athlone were tipped by a well-known pundit that I'd respect at the start of the season. Like after the first game, he really fancied him, and it's just probably you don't know what goes on. You know, did lads get injured? You know, was there lads out? Was things not? You know, something. You don't know what's going on in the camp, but. I don't think Athlone have to worry too much. I think they can bounce out of Division 2, out of the Section B.
Still senior.
Yeah, they're still senior, and sometimes you're better off in that Section B.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're better off.
Going down as well. First time they've been not in the knockout stages in the championship for a long time. But again, they're probably a little bit in transition. Young lads coming into that forward line in particularly. They'll benefit from dropping down as well and rebuild. And you know, Jerry, he came in late in the year, whether he stays on or not, to be yet to be decided, I believe. But you know, they'll regroup as well. Thirds past, we know.
Yeah, from a small pick, like the things they've done in the last 20, 30 years, like it's unreal. Like, you know what I mean? Like, brilliant club. There'll be no worries there.
So lads, 2 quarter-finals this weekend. Garrycastle and Mullingar. We didn't talk much about Garrycastle on the Perform area. This one is on Saturday. It's at 4:15. Like, it's a cracking game next door here. And you know, Mullingar were disappointed this week. They'll be hoping that their injuries clear up. Garrycastle, we don't know what they showed last week, but you know, Garrycastle are another team you wouldn't fancy taking them on in this. We go into the knockout stage of a championship, because if ever a team knows how to win games and win championships, they're the boys.
Yeah, and they've been really tight in the back. You know, they're a hard team to score against. They're really, like, you know, you go back any time over the last 20 years, incredibly organised, incredibly dogged, incredibly hard to break down. You know, you don't want to be playing them. They're really dogged. They know, you know, they can play lots of really nice football, but they're never out of a game. And you know, that game could go right down to the wire. To be honest with you, I wouldn't even like to predict what way it goes, even wearing the Shamrock's hat. You know, it could be a really tight game.
Like, you're just looking at the Garrycastle team, and it's like a team from a senior final a few years ago. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, you're there, it's like, okay, it might be one or two of them getting on a bit, but like James Dolan, is there a better footballer in the county this year?
No, he's been playing excellently.
You know, is like, and you know, James, like, and then two keepers probably 2 point specialists.
Yeah,
you know, I suppose if there's 3 points in it with 6 minutes to go, and there's a 2-pointer, it's going to take the keeper 5 minutes to walk up to kick it anyway. You know.
Yes.
You know, so.
Ross has been excellent on the 2-pointers for Mullingar as well, and you know, Sean
Brennan is kicking.
Yeah. Again, this championship league is coming to a boil, and those 2 quarter-finals, you couldn't hardly call them. Colliery and Kinnegad. You know, which Colliery turns up, which Cornerstone Kinnegad turns up.
Yeah.
You know, if we get both at their very best, that has the makings of a cracking match. Like, there's a huge amount of talent on view there.
A lot of big scorers as well there, like, you know, potent forwards, Colliery and Kinnegad, you know, when they fire, you could be seeing a lot of nice scores in that game. Or you could be seeing absolutely no scores in that game.
You'd have to think to Kinnegad, they're a seasoned senior team. They're having a difficult year, up, down. Kinnegad, I see Kinnegad heading for semi-final.
Yeah, they'll be hoping for 2 ups in a row, won't they? That's what they want.
That's what they need.
And Colliery, of course, on the same side. Pat Flanagan on the sideline with Colliery. He knows all about winning games and winning championships. He's done it all over the place. Jack, as we said, on the Kinnegad sideline, you know, there's a battle of wits there. You know, there's so much to look forward to. There's so much to look forward in all the games this weekend, but particularly in those 2 senior quarter-finals. But I'm just going to, before we finish, I want to run through the fixtures for all the games this weekend in the Junior 2 Championship. St Paul's versus Colliery on Sunday at 11:30. Delvin versus Thurles Pass in that Junior 2 quarter-final. That's at 11:30 in Killucan. Saturday then, quarter-final of the intermediate football, Milltown versus Castledaly at 2:30 in Cusick Park, live on Eaarmhi TV. That's followed by a senior football quarter-final between Garrycastle and Mullingar at 4:15, also on Eaarmhi TV. On Sunday, we have the second intermediate quarter-final, Multi versus Milltown Pass, 2:30 on Eaarmhi TV as well, and that's followed by Colliery and Cornerstone Kinnegad at 4:15. also on Eaarmhi TV. With the Junior 1 quarter-finals, the Downs versus St. Joseph's on Saturday, 2:30 in Rochester Bridge. Athlone versus Ballynagore, 4 p.m. on the Saturday, also in Rochester Bridge. And then the other two quarters, Mullingar versus Bunbrusna, Sunday, 1 p.m. in Killucan, and St. Lomans versus Ballycarrigy, 1 p.m. in Shandona. The relegation game, Tang versus St. Malachy's, is at 2 p.m. in Ballymore. And then the relegation from Junior 1, which will be Killucan versus Ballycamoiles on Saturday, 2 p.m. in Delvin. So that's lots of games on TV, lots of games out there to go and see, but you know, in that junior championship, there's going to be so many interesting battles in that as well. But to me, the two big games, or the four big games, the intermediate quarters and the senior quarters, very, very hard to call either of them.
Really hard to call, but like, you know, when you kind of look back at those tables, both senior and intermediate, the jeopardy that was there on Saturday and Sunday in all of those games is kind of testament to kind of the structure of the championship's really, really good. Like, you had Lomans going in, if they won, they could get into a semi-final. If they lost, they could have been out of the championship. You know, you had, you know, the Killucan, you know, there's three teams there in the second half, Killucan, Moat and Colliery all ended up on the same, same points.
Yeah.
And you know, any of them could have gone through on that particular day. Then you had like Tang and Malachy's, depending on what way their games went, they could be in a relegation playoff, which they are, or Tang could have been gone, you know, from that point of view. And it was pretty similar when you look at the intermediate. Like, you know, I think, you know, if there's one thing that we have pretty right in terms of senior and intermediate, like the structure of the championship has really thrown up a great, what we'll call it, Super Saturdays, Super Sundays, what the, you know, in relation to those games last weekend.
You know, while you mention that, the only downside to the championship, and this was something that was discussed in the press box and in, you know, off air and on Eaarmhi TV, you have two teams in a quarter final that only won 2 games. And is that, you know, is that right? Or is it just that's the way with 4 out of 6 going through? Are you going to get that? You know,
with 4 out of 6, you get that. It's inevitable that's going to
it.
happen.
I think, you know, the group stage last weekend was you know, great the way it worked out. You know, okay, we covered the Downs and Mullingar, but the other 2 games were fascinating in what way they were going to go. Like, because everyone was looking, as you said, Paul, Iarmhi was going to go out of the championship, which would have been the biggest shock in 20 years of football in Westmeath, but they didn't. And now, on the other hand, we look at them and no one wants to play them in the semi-final because, you know, you're going to win that championship. It looks like you're going to have to go through Lomans. So, you know, the Downs have looked good, but no guarantees and no trophies handed out, you know, before the end of October. And that's
it'll be interesting. Probably it's the first time in a while that one team has won all their games in that championship. The Downs are 10 points, and I suppose it'll be interesting for me is, does Niall Mitchell fit back into the Downs team? Where can he fit in? Where do they fit him in? Is there a place for him? I'd always think there should be a place for him, but that'll be I'm like, that's probably they've been the dominant team, and if they played you and they beat you, you probably lost the game the following Sunday week to get yourself back organised, and it became so like they're there in the semi-final. I suppose everybody's going to be throwing darts at them, and St. Lomans are just coming in nice and quietly.
Under the radar in the semi-finals. Lads, we're going to finish up. Again, I'm going to say it again. If you like what we're doing, if you like, and you're watching us every week, wherever it is, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Facebook, whether you listen on Spotify, give us a like, give us a subscription. We want the numbers up if we can. We're absolutely thrilled with the amount of people that are watching us. We hope we bring a bit of enjoyment. We hope we generate a bit of a buzz in the dressing room, that managers can say that those clowns on Eaarmhi TV podcasts are writing us off and whatever, and what do they know about it? Sure,
you can post it on Eddie's Instagram handle. Okay. He's very, very prolific on Instagram, and you can let him know.
Okay.
I'll check that out.
We'll check that out, Eddie. Looking lads, again, thanks very much for joining us, Eddie, at short notice. Paul, as always, great to have you on. Jerry Gavin was on the camera. Tom Browne on the production desk, as always. Disappointing day for him yesterday, of course. He'll rise again. But from us all here on the Eaarmhi TV podcast, episode 11, 2 for the price of 1. From Ray Gavin, goodbye for now.